You are listening to It Came From the Radio. If you've been listening, you already know this. This is Jennifer Elise Feldman, aka Dr. Feldy. And you know when I come on, things might go off the rails. Maybe they won't. We'll see what happens. We'll see. I don't have the entire interview today outlined. Sometimes I outline every single word, but we're gonna freestyle half of this. All right, so who's here with me today? Jim C. Hines. Now he has a kind of vocal fan base. I was listening to some interviews and reviews, and there was even one person, Dinosaur in the Library, that contacted him personally to thank him for writing Magic X Libris because she loved it so, as she said, effing much. We can't curse on the radio. And she loved it. So, I'm always interested to see what the hoop was all about when we have a vocal fan base. So anyway, who the heck is Jim C. Hines? He's an award-winning author, Kitemaster. Goblin Quest was his first novel. The tale of a nearsighted goblin runt and his pet fire spider. Never had a pet fire spider. Magic X Libris, which followed the adventures of a magic-wielding librarian from northern Michigan. And Jim has written more than 50 published short stories in addition. And he's here. So welcome to Came From the Radio.
Thank you for having me.
So you're welcome. You're welcome. Well, first of all, sorry, I was just wondering, this is a personal question, so we're gonna get that
Okay.
over first. What the heck is the difference between a goblin and a ghost? Because you got Goblin Quest. Why isn't it Ghost Quest? What's the difference?
Oh, yeah. Ghosts. Ghosts traditionally are spirits of dead people. Uh,
Okay.
Goblins are much more traditional fantasy monster. They're kind of small and scrawny. They tend to be the underdogs. You saw a lot of them in the Lord of the Rings movies.
Okay.
They're just these little, usually green, um, runts, basically. They're
Okay.
who the heroes kind of plow through on their way to the real adventure. Um,
Gotcha. I've always wondered. I think it's even a rap lyric. Like, what's the difference between a ghost and a goblin? So, I had to go to the expert himself who's written all these books on it. All right, so we're gonna move on now.
okay.
Magic X Libris. You
Yes.
had this vocal review from the Dinosaur in the Library. Now, could you just tell us a little bit of what this is about? We have like magic. What is it? Libriomancy. Is that the name?
Libriomancy. Yeah.
Right. So I just produced a movie called Necromance, like necromancy. So,
Oh,
there's some magical things going on. Now, could you just tell us what the heck libromancy is? That's pretty cool.
it's basically the idea that if enough people read the same book, then
Mhm.
that collective belief lets libriomancers, that handful of magic using people, reach into the book and pull out anything that fits through the pages. So
Ah,
you can reach into the Chronicles of Narnia and pull out Lucy's healing potion. You can reach into a Star Wars book and pull out a lightsaber. You can't call it that in my book because of trademark reasons, but in
okay.
theory.
Very
And
cool.
that
Okay.
idea, it opened up so many ideas and so many possibilities and let me really indulge the whole inner geek, science fiction, fantasy fanboy side.
Got it. So if enough people read the book, you could bring something to life. That's kind of a related idea with like prayer circles and prayer chains. People think if enough
Kind
people
of.
pray, then miracles can happen. I don't know. I've heard things happen. I don't know. But back to you now, if you could bring any three things to life from the book and practice this liberomancy, what things would you bring into your life today?
I would definitely want some of that healing magic. I would love to be able to cure my diabetes and a whole bunch of other people's diseases and problems. So healing magic of some form would be the first one.
Okay.
Um, a lightsaber is tempting just because it's awesome.
Sure.
I'm not sure about that. Um, I think I would have to dig up one of the comic book novelizations and find myself a Green Lantern ring, just because that seems to have a very broad range of superpowers, which would be a lot of fun. Um, was that two or three?
That was three, but you can keep going.
No, I would start with those three and then go from there.
Well, you're a man, or you present like a man, so I'd imagine you were born with
Hmm.
a lightsaber. So why ask for a new one? But I used to do stand up. Bad joke. Bad dirty joke for the radio. And the library women. I don't know if you have any of these library women in your book, but I came up with this theory a long time high in college on my own show that you got to watch out for the library women because they have their hair up, they have their glasses on, and then when you least expect it, they take their hair down, they whip their glasses off, and they show you a different side. So you got to watch out for those library women.
I actually hung out with a lot of the library students during grad school, and without getting into details, the librarians were pretty awesome. They were a lot of fun.
Yeah, there's some weird ones. I hear about my mom's a librarian, actually. So she
Oh,
has a
okay.
very wacky side. I don't know about the sensual side. I'd rather not see that, but I have heard way too much. She was telling way too much about that to a friend of mine the other week, and I had to text her. Sorry that you know so much about my mom's sex life. Anyway, so where'd you come up with this Libriomancy idea and the whole plot? It's very inventive. How did you basically invent this?
I I blame an editor named Carrie Hughes.
Okay.
After I had written the Goblin books, you mentioned Jig the Goblin and his fire spider, Smudge.
Mhm.
And I don't actually like spiders, but I tried to write it as, make this lovable, spunky, fun spider sidekick.
Mhm.
And Smudge ended up being like the most popular character in those books. Everybody loved the fire spider. Oh, okay, great. Go me. And then this editor a few years later said she wanted a short story from me for an anthology she was doing. And she wanted a story about Smudge, but she
Mhm.
wanted it to be set in the present day. It's like,
Okay.
okay, how is that even going to work? And I finally decided I was going to write about somebody who can literally reach into the book, pull out the fire spider, and then they go off to have adventures at, well, in the short story, it's at a science fiction convention. Um, but once that idea had sort of taken root, I wrote the short story, and then I was thinking I can do so much more with this. There's a lot more ground to cover. There's
Mhm.
a lot of the possibilities to explore, and just it exploded from there. It turned into 4.5 books.
Wow.
I got to bring in all sorts of different vampires, werewolves, wendigos, monsters, uh, from all the different types of books out there. So you've got your classic Dracula vampires, you've got sparkling vampires running around. It just depends on
Uh-huh.
which book that infection came from.
I would say a spider in 2025, if the female probably has lip injections, maybe lashes. Those are very popular. Maybe today it would go to like an ICE protest. That's really big right now. I'm not going to an ICE protest today. But yeah, anyway.
Well, you've got to interview me first.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Right.
But I did have one cancellation, so maybe I can. Just real
Squeeze it
quick,
in.
do you
Yeah.
believe that Wendigos or Wendigos exist? Do you think they're real?
My wife teases me for this. Most of the magic, the monsters that I write about, I'm not going to come flat out and say no, they don't exist,
Huh?
but I've never seen credible evidence to make me believe that they do.
Right, right. Okay. There's a whole TikTok thing I found at like 3 in the morning one time, and then I'm worried about some skinwalker out my window or something. Don't watch TikTok, Appalachian Trail, Wendigo stuff. It'll scare you if you're in bed or
At least
yeah.
not at 3 in the morning. Yeah.
Yeah. It's supposedly the time where the veil is thinner, if that's such a thing. But anyway, let's move on. So, your newest book, Kitemaster. Could you
Yes.
give us a little synopsis for the listeners about that?
Oh, I wish I could. Kitemaster of all my books is the one that really doesn't want to have a little simple pitch line.
Okay.
Um, but I'll try. It is a standalone fantasy set in a world um, where the wind never stops. It's constant
Mhm.
wind. It affects everything, the society, the magic. Um, and you've got some people who are able to control that.
Hmm.
And the protagonist, Niall, is she discovers she's a kite master, somebody who has power over wind and the things that fly in it. And she, as these things go, she gets dragged into having to save the world. But for me, a lot of the book was just about exploring a sense of wonder. Um,
Hmm.
you know, I wanted to have every chapter have scenes that just made me go, "Oh wow, that's so cool." Whether it's the first time she flies on a kite ship and she's commanding these giant kites that pull this ship through the air, or the first time she sees a dragon. And in this world, dragons fly with the stars. They're way, way up there.
Hmm.
Or, smaller moments like, you know, finding the spirit kite of her grandmother and reconnecting with her grandmother who's been gone for a while. And just that, the plot is kind of straightforward. It's an evil queen. We have to stop her and her army,
Hmm.
but there's so much more. Just, dealing with grief and love and family and wonder.
Controlling the winds. Maybe, if you were going to do an offshoot of this, you could add geoengineering because people believe that there are elites out there that control hurricanes and tornadoes.
Oh
So
God. And we're
maybe
going
you
to
can
have
get into
space
weather
laser.
control. Right? Get
Yeah.
maybe Bill Gates or whoever they think controls it. You can make it political and then lose half your audience. That's a suggestion. If you ever want to lose half your audience, I'm your girl. I'll tell you exactly what to do.
I think if I go that route, my agent might get a little cranky with me.
Yeah, see, that's why I had an agent in sixth grade, and I will never have an agent again. You want to call me? I'll have a special number and a separate email. Yeah, no one's controlling it because you don't want to answer to anyone. You got to answer to the IRS. My uncle's an IRS agent. No hate, but hey. All right. So, is there anything you would like us to know about Kite Master? Or is there anything that you wanted your readers to get from it? Because, as a writer, you spend all this time. It's a sacrifice. You put all this time writing a book that you could be doing something else. Like for me, I would like to just sit around, eat brownies and ice cream sundaes and watch TV all day. I would love to do that,
That
but I don't.
sounds awesome.
So why write this book? Why do you want people to read this?
I don't know. Now I'm thinking about ice cream and brownies. Um, I think for this one, I want I want to share that sense of hope and love and that
Hmm,
overcoming of grief. And it in some ways it's ended up being a little more timely. I've been working on this book in one form or another for 20 years, but
right.
a story about this girl from a small village who ends up facing off against this tyrannical, over the top ruler. That's kind of timely in some ways.
Yeah,
But
every year.
I think mostly I want people to come away feeling that sense of hope and
Hmm.
happiness um and maybe even a little joy.
Hope and happiness, a little joy. Yeah, that would be great. I'm gonna ask my dad to do that. Our last conversation was just doom and gloom. I think he went through every single person and what troubles they're going through. I had to be like, can we like, maybe 5% something fun here? Like what the heck is going on, man? You're killing me.
Well, and
Killing me.
it's so easy to get caught up in the negative and to
Oh
just
yeah.
stop seeing everything else, and sometimes, I mean, I've had people describe my books as like escapism, like that's a bad thing. It's like, no, sometimes we need an
Yes.
escape. We need a break. We
Wow.
need happiness and laughter and smart ass comments about librarians.
Right.
We need this stuff.
That's funny. I don't like to say things are funny when they're not. I have a whole rant about that for 3 minutes. I used to do in stand up, but that's actually my next question to you. That I'm a big fan of escapism, and I'm a big
Sweet.
fan of living in the moment. And it's to me, life is all about balance. I'll kind of time
Mhm.
almost every single day where I'm in the moment, tackling something real. I got a garden, I got a house to maintain. You got upkeep to do. We got you to meet with and ask you a bunch of crazy questions and maybe drive
Right.
you a little crazy or not. But then for me, for my own mental health, and maybe this is a good thing, maybe it's not. I don't know. I find that kind of need, or maybe a little bit addicted to escapism. And my main thing would be eating, watching TV. I generally don't text. I go off into another world, and I'm thankful for whoever transports me there. So your all your content is it's like otherworldly. It's not exactly taking place in this world.
Right.
I'd say most of your stories. And now I'm gonna ask you a question. You don't have to answer it, but it came out recently that Elon Musk maybe dabbles in Molly or ecstasy, ketamine, marijuana.
I like
I
that.
dabble in
Dabbles.
marijuana. Yeah,
Yeah.
no shade. I don't drink, but I like the marijuana. And I'm sorry, but it transports me to another world, for better or for worse. You ever involve any psychotropic foods, which wheatgrass actually could be a little psychotropic? Anything that changes your mental state before you're writing to create these worlds for us?
I have not. I am
Ah,
kind of boringly straight-laced, mostly. There are exceptions. But yeah, I have always approached it clear-headed or as sober as my brain gets.
yeah,
It might be interesting one day, or it might produce something disturbing and scary. I don't know.
maybe. No, I always say drugs are bad. Don't do drugs. I don't condone it, but I had to ask. And now,
Sure.
Kitemaster, it's about overcoming some things. So, would you mind, for inspiration purposes, not to be nosy, would you mind sharing anything that you struggle with that you successfully overcame that maybe would give a few people hope? At least this week, I know a lot of people are telling me they got all types of stuff and they're feeling a little hopeless. So maybe you can share something you've overcame.
Um, well, I've been uh, on antidepressants and in therapy off and on for depression for probably close to 15 years now. And I won't say I've overcome it because it's one of those things that it's still there, it's still waiting for an opening. But I think for the most part, it's managed. And I look back and I am definitely in a much better space mentally and emotionally than I was before I got help.
Very nice, very good.
So, yeah, that's been kind of an ongoing challenge, but
Hmm.
it's worth it. It was definitely worth it to finally get help. Um, I had a few people that I love who kind of kicked my ass into doing it. It's like, Jim, you're a mess. Go.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm glad they did. And when I finally took that step, yeah, it made a huge difference in my life.
Yeah, a lot of people do. I've dealt with it for sure. I think, I don't know, at least this is my take on life. If you're looking around and you're highly conscious, I mean, even something I was thinking right before bed, I get a text in the morning from someone saying it. I'm a lot of times thinking of like, oh, this meant this and this meant that. So if you're paying attention, I don't know how you don't have at least anxiety because this world is really crazy and I don't and a lot of things are being demolished right now. Thought processes, diet protocol, almost everything, every structure that humans know of is kind of being demolished and rebuilt probably within our lifetimes because a lot of it doesn't work. So we're living in a system, granted, it doesn't work. So how are you gonna feel like everything's working well when you're in a corrupt system? So, right?
You were talking about balance, and that's been,
Mhm.
especially this past year, that's been a big struggle. Is I want to be aware, I want to know what's going on in the world, but like you said, there's so much, and eventually it's like, okay, I think I have and understanding what's going on, I need to turn off the news and turn off the social media and
Yeah.
just because it'll drag you down.
Unless you watch some really fun social media. I just posted a very inappropriate song on my Facebook, and I gotta say it's kind of fun. And it is a
Okay,
distraction, and that type of stuff is escapism from the other
right.
BS and narcissism and silliness and all that. But anyway, so
And
we're
cat
at the
videos.
very end. A cat video, yeah, there are some really cute cat videos. I love cats and dogs. Now, we're at the very, very end of our interview. We're basically at time, but I just would
Okay.
like to get your social media and also anything you would like us to know or any aspiring writers to know from someone who's very experienced and well loved, according to the internet.
Well, it depends on which part of the internet you ask. But
Oh, sure.
if you go to jimchines.com, jimchines.com,
Mhm.
there are links to Facebook and Blue Sky and Goodreads, all of the places I hang out. And what I would say for I'll focus on the aspiring writers. This is hard. Um,
Mhm.
and it's worth it. Do do the work, be honest, put yourself into the story, and don't be discouraged that it takes a while. Any skill takes years and years to master. Writing a story is no different. Be kind to yourself, give yourself a chance, and write what you love. That's what
Yeah.
eventually worked for me.
Yeah, I'd say any skill that's worthy could take a lot of practice, except offending people. And that'll be my final thought. You said depends where you find the internet. Listen, anyone worth knowing isn't universally liked, I think. And if you have any type of opinion, you stand for anything, you're going to
Yep.
have someone that doesn't like you. And if everyone likes you, I don't know how much they can like you because you're probably not doing very much. So that's it. That's my final thought.
Except maybe Mr. Rogers. He might be the exception on
Although
that.
I liked him, but I have to say I find him a little boring because maybe I'm a little bit of an edgelord and I like to hear about vampires. So as a kid, I was watching vampire stuff when I was like 2, 3, and I wasn't scared. Now I'm scared of that stuff. I don't watch horror stuff. I just make it. It's too scary. But I found Mr. Rogers very boring. So there's someone who has like negative to say about Mr. Rogers. Oh, I'm sorry. Don't speak ill of the dead. Mark Torres, the producer of the show, said not to do that, but I just did it. What are you gonna
It's
do?
one thing. It's one thing to say, I find this boring. That doesn't mean you dislike the person. That just means I'm not into this.
I just
And
would
that's
have liked
fine.
to see a little more joie de vivre, a little more maybe personal stuff for Mr. Rogers. I feel like he showed us one side. I'd like to see the dark side, maybe the library woman, mysterious, erotic side of Mr. Rogers, and I didn't get to see that. So I would have liked to have maybe he had practiced some libriomancy and showed us a different side. That's all I'm saying.
I am sure you could find fan fiction, that gets very dark about Mr. Rogers, and if you wanted to.
You're giving me ideas now. Maybe I'll make a Mr. Rogers little spoof. All right, on that note,
Right.
thank you so much for being a guest on the radio and all your hard work and giving people escapism and enjoyment and more reasons to enjoy the now. And good luck with everything. And now back to the studio for more. It came from the radio with Mark Torres.